Hello, welcome to Quackalope. Thank you for being here. Today we're walking you through Zoo Tycoon, the flipping board game.
And what a walk it is.
Now, there are a few caveats I should make at the very beginning of this video. First off,
The box was upside down?
the question you all are wondering and asking yourselves is, can I remove fences and allow my animals to rampage through the landscape, slowly devouring all of the citizens I happen to have accidentally trapped in the zoo with lampposts?
I think they call that Jumanji. I think it's a different game.
No, it's Zoo Tycoon. I'm pretty sure, just not the board game. You're not going to be able to torture, trap, or annihilate people like you can in the online video game. Yeah. Also,
you can't do that.
In Roller Coaster Tycoon, you just remove some track and
then
let them shoot off the diving board. Other than that, the simple heads up, the like 20-second overview that some of you are really here for, the push come to shove should you get this game. If you like Arc Nova, if you're into heavy Euros, if you're looking for something that lets you feel like you're a zookeeper, that lets you live and foster and develop animals while managing the microeconomy and the resources and the money that you need to actually run like an abstracted version of a zoo, yeah. I mean, you're gonna love this. You really genuinely are. But if you're just a fan of the video game, if you're coming like I am, approaching something like this thinking, Zoo Tycoon, I played that when I was 12 for like 17 months straight, this is heavier, it's more complex, and more in-depth than you might be ready for. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't get it. It just means you should be aware. They have not pulled punches when it comes to, well, the gameplay, the mechanics, the setup time, and the infrastructure of this game. There is a lot going on here, and it does a lot of it really well, but it will take a bit of work on your part to get there. So, in this preview video, we're going to try to go over a little bit about the structure of the game and how it actually plays and flows, but really focus on 2 or 3 of the core high-level mechanics, because the experience of playing this game isn't just the turn order. It's the actual details that take 2 or 3 hours to kind of watch them evolve and watch as your zoo starts to develop, and you slowly realize that a population of breeding lions is not only terrifying to the local populace, but also a problem you really need to deal with.
Yes.
All right, Wes, so let's start them off with the general overview, the structure of this game. How does Zoo Tycoon function?
So you're managing lots of different things, but your ultimate goal is for you to have your popularity and your conservation as high up on the board as you possibly can together. Because it doesn't matter if you're the most popular zoo, but you have no conservation, you're not going to win, because the winning structure is whoever the lowest of your two is the way that you will win the game. So you want to have both of them as high as possible. Well, that might mean to you, well, I can just forget about education then. No, you can't, because education will help you raise your popularity and your conservation. So everything is a balanced give and take of those two things.
And in a classic Euro game, it is a symptom of everything you do well, if you do it well, will lead to those type of rewards. The animals that you have, the buildings you're building, the habitats that you're slowly developing and growing, the things you decide to actually place inside of them to continue bumping those tracks. There's a lot of opportunity to get them up there. However, you cannot solely focus on one over the other. You do need to have a balanced approach.
And the other interesting puzzle is trying to figure out, number one, what species you want to put in your zoo and which are going to be the most beneficial to you, and how you're going to combine those different enclosures together. Because there's some animals that are happy to live with other animals, like your zebras and your ibises and ostriches and things like that, like you might see out in the wild Serengeti.
Your elephants and your turkeys. Best friends.
Okay.
It's a common thing.
Common thing? All right, good. I thought the South Park episode was elephants and pigs.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay.
I'm talking about science.
Yes, for
I'm
sure.
going to close this window.
Probably a good plan. The more animals you have in the same enclosure, potentially the more points that you can get for your popularity, which is great. But a lot of those animals don't come with a ton of conservation points. So you still have to get some of those larger animals like elephants and bears and things like that give you a lot of conservation points, because those will be things that will help push you up that ladder. So it's a constant give and take of trying to figure out what are the right animals for me to get, which particular tile should I be focusing on, and the more different types of enclosures you have, the more bonus points and things that you can get as well. That is where the analysis paralysis came in for me. It was trying to figure out which things I wanted to build, because I want to build them all.
Yeah, you definitely have to plan and build in a certain direction, because as you start moving up this market track and as animals become more and more scarce, more and more limited, or different things are available throughout the course of the game, you do have to have planned towards the direction that you want to go. So the general turn structure is going to follow this season track over here, and we'll be going through something around, 8 total rounds, moving through each one of these seasons. So let's go ahead and go through this so that we can kind of walk people through how the game's going to function mechanically.
Okay, so there are the 4 different seasons, and there are things that you can do within each of those seasons. You're going to be changing out your starting players. You're going to draw an event card, and the event cards are different things that can happen. Like some of them are bad weather. This one here is a jungle story. So, the
zoo with the most rainforest species is going to get a benefit.
Yeah, it gets 3 extra buzz, which is great for your popularity, and that will help you make more money. It's fantastic. And then you're going to have your offspring phase. This is the let's get it on phase with all of your different animals. So that gives you an opportunity to breed with all your female animals, or you could also use a worker to make yourself have birth control so that one particular species doesn't give birth.
We did that with my lions.
It was probably a good thing. They were getting a little out of hand.
Necessary.
And then we're going to move into the next phase, which will put us into that beautiful summer phase. So you're renewing your market. So the cool thing about this game, which I think is really, really unique and I've never seen done before, is your market board is right here. And each round you're going to move it just a little bit. And that's going to change what's available on the actual market itself.
There is a giant track underneath this. And full of numbers.
Yeah, and each one of those will be listed in the information here, and will show you either can you sell your baby animals to other zoos looking to purchase them, or maybe you are looking to purchase because you want to get that animal into your zoo. So you're able to purchase them from that location. It'll tell you if there's a certain number of females and males available.
And depending on what you decided to do with your game group, you're following either like a back and forth or a zigzag pattern, so it is typically fairly varied and fairly different.
Which I've never seen anything. Have you seen anything do that before?
I don't think so. It's a
really
weird
cool
mechanic to watch this entire board shift and adjust all of the marketplace values at the same time.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's a very unique concept.
Yep.
And then you're going to... okay, so you have your leaving income and clear your market. So those are going to be animals leaving your zoo. You're going to have different incomes that come in to your zoo. These animals will now be available to come into your zoo and location. Then in the fall, you're going to have your, you can take 3 of these different actions. So you'll get your different, you'll have the opportunity for donor cards. And donor cards are different situations that happen. Kind of think of them as grants that were available. You're going to get scored based on your types of terrain that you currently have for your different enclosures. And that could allow you to get extra pieces of that type of terrain or additional monies and things like that based on what the event... Or
now, the event and donor cards add a little bit of variance to the game, but they're not game-breaking or game-changing, right? They're just that little bonus that if you decide to go for it or you already happen to be within the category, you just get a little bit of given back to you.
Just like traditional nonprofits, the grants are very rarely available when you really need them. It's that they're there and you happen to stumble upon the grant and then you're like, hey, I'm the most worthy one. Please give me your money.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And then you're going to talk about conservation. So different types of, you'll be able to score your conservation things at that point. You're going to replace your donor cards. There's the ability to get loans because zoos cost lots of money. And if you're in a situation where you're not going to be able to pay your current running costs, you have the ability to grab a loan. And a loan is worth 10 gold, or 10 money, whatever you want to call it. So that's fantastic. The problem is that it also is going to hurt you at the end of the game because it'll cost you negative popularity points at the end.
Zoo Tycoon does not hold your hand very much.
Definitely
just
not.
So you know. If you like that type of game, awesome. If you get really frustrated without like some degree of catch-up mechanics and stuff like that,
there's none.
It kind of reminds me of some of the especially with like the marketplace and things, some of the heavier like railroad games that we play.
Yes.
Where it's just a bit unforgiving, and that's okay with it.
Yeah. There's no...
It's like, oh, you need money?
No
well, life's hard, buddy.
Yeah.
So you like go into debt for this.
Good luck.
Yeah.
We'll give you an option to help you through it, but it's going to cost you.
Yeah.
And then you're going to do your building phase. So there'll be different tiles and things that are awarded to you based on the situation. And then you could start building out your zoo.
And the tiles are really cool. Like you've already kind of said, you have these various different enclosures that start to section off the different parts of your park. And you can create divides and lines depending on what you want to have there.
Yep.
Along with that, you're going to have some standard basic like level 0 tiles. They're going to have animals on them. You can see them pictured over here. There's going to be animals that like don't have minis, but they're still really cool. And honestly, selfishly, I kind of like the way they look more than I like the minis. I'm weird. I like artwork. So they get to be popped down on your board. I've got a lovely little swan or goose here. I did not see any ducks, and I am
there's a lack of duck
bit
for sure on this.
That. Along with that, just like any good tycoon game, you're going to have a plethora of little buildings that are going to give different variants.
Yeah.
Most of them are not, again, game-breaking or critical, but they'll give like that little bit of research, or adjacent properties will all get a little bit of extra conservation, for instance, or they'll generate some money for you. And those are nice ways to balance out these tracks as you start like fine-tuning your way up that board.
Exactly. One of the major things that I found I needed more were the ways to make additional income, because my zoo got really expensive really fast.
You took, what is that? 4 elephants?
Yeah, 4 elephants, and they're very expensive. The bear are also, and the orangutans are extremely expensive, and I took a different conservation path, which we'll talk about in a minute, because I wanted to try that out, and it got really, really, really expensive. So I took a whole bunch of these different marketing type market boards, so like places where you can eat and things, souvenir shops and stuff like that, to help reduce the income cost of my my zoo.
Yeah. Okay.
And then lastly, we're going to talk about animal keeping, education, scoring, taxes, and things. Okay, so with your animal keeping...
Taxes in this game are disgusting.
Yeah, they are. Animal keeping, which I think is actually a really unique zoo.
3. You can keep 3.
Keep 3.
You can taxes go down to 3.
Yes, yeah, you only get to keep 3. It's rough, especially if you took a loan and then didn't actually use all the money.
You can keep 3.
You get to keep 3 of that. So animal keeping is really cool. In this particular site, on the first track on the left-hand side is actually the type of animal, and for every year that you have that animal, or every round that you go through, you get to raise that level 1, which is great, because then it helps. You're getting better at being that animal's carekeeper. So it like thematically makes a lot of sense to me, and I really like it.
So these animal cards are really cool too. Not to derail too much, but you're going to be tracking the different habitat and the creatures that you have with these cards, and they're also going to set up the structure of like how you're able to actually position them and place them down into your zoo. So let's go through these cards real quick to give people, because this is actually a whole little puzzle in and of itself.
It 100% is.
6 of them?
You have 6, yes. So up here at the very top, these are your popularity points. So this means that your entire enclosure for those particular animals is worth 4 popularity.
Yep.
Awesome. It gives you a potential valuation for your education of 4, as long as you've got a blue building either in that enclosure or one of the secondary buildings touching it.
You have to have a research building to make use of it.
Exactly, and you get all 4 of those points when you do that. Conservation, it means that you have the ability to have 3 green buildings in your enclosure, or 3 things that have conservation and touching it, and then that will give you the potential for 3 different conservation points. Which
Mine's
is
just
awesome.
a signpost that says endangered.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah.
Here, this tells you, the very next one here at the bottom, that tells you that you can have 2 of that particular type of animal on each enclosure tile space.
And so if I have a space like down here of 4, I could technically have 8 total squeezed into that area.
In theory. And then it tells you that your for every tile, then it costs 3. So each tile that an animal is on costs you 3 money in running expenses for that particular one. Then the next one underneath it is unique because it's going to give you the different options for what type of different animals that you can have. So like these 3 here. So this tells you that these are alpha species. There can only be 1 male and 1 female, or a harem of females and 1 male. Down here, these are bachelors, so that means that you could still have the one male and a whole bunch of females, or if you're in a situation where you just want to have a whole bunch of males, that's completely fine. They can live as bachelors together, no big deal, but there cannot be a female available at all, or it will end everything. And then these down here allow you to say, it doesn't matter. You can throw as many of them as you want together. There can be all male, all female. They don't care, which is really cool. And I think that makes a lot of sense. Then the one underneath it, you see here, these are starred out, which means they cannot live with other species. They have to be in an enclosure all by themselves. But with these particular red macaw, you can actually have other species in the same enclosure with them, as long as there's also another star at the bottom of that particular animal's location, which I think is really cool.
The next game, Zoo Tycoon Epic Fights, is going to allow you to put the lowland gorilla into the green macaw's enclosure. But that's not out yet.
Yeah. I think that gives you negative conservation points on that one as well. Potentially.
But really good research.
Really fun research, yes. Yeah. Very. Dana White is very much looking forward to it.
Incredible research.
And so then here on the bottom, what does this part tell you? This is how good are you at taking care of that type of animal.
So this is what you were talking about in terms of how long you've had them. It starts to increase and tick up.
And if it's the very first time, you always start at the bottom, but you see there's like a brown foot there. It means if you've got other ape species or whatever, then you can actually start at the brown one and then start working your way up, which is great. The next one is how many empty spaces are available. And in this particular situation, there have to be 2 empty spaces available
for you to even have
put them in there
as creatures. So when we look back at my enclosure here, I could technically have 8, except they're particular.
Yes.
They actually want an additional empty space to maintain. So it's a little bit cheaper because they only exist on one tile, but I do need that extra space to even have the ones that I have.
Exactly. And then the next one over is how many retreats do you have? So those would be the brown buildings. Yep. There have to be at least 2 for the lowland gorillas to be happy.
They want to be able to go inside when it snows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's bad in Cleveland. And then here on this side is how many of them do you have together? Obviously, they're social animals. They want to have multiples in the same location. But again, you still got to follow that bachelor or harem kind of species concept. So in yours, there are 3 females and 1 male. So you're getting the 3, which is fantastic. So technically you're down there. Actually, you're 4, excuse me. So you're right there. And that allows you, once you've done that, as you see here on the side, it says not only can you get a yellow building, which is great, but you can also start doing the breeding. So during that breeding phase, you'll be rolling dice, and as long as you match that number, then you could potentially have a baby.
If you have a certain number of animals in the same enclosure together, they'll just, unless you have birth control on them, they'll naturally start repopulating. Sometimes that is amazing, and it's exactly what you want. Other times,
not so
it's
much.
A problem.
Yes.
And a very complicated solution.
Exactly.
Euthanasia.
Pretty much.
You can't kill animals in this game.
No, you really can't. You have to sell them off to other zoos.
You'll want to.
And once they're in your enclosures, you can't get rid of them, which also is frustrating.
But there's no one saying you can't just strangle an elephant with your bare hands and happen to not have it on the board anymore.
You just have very large hands to get around the neck of an elephant.
Yeah, you just squeeze hard.
Squeeze hard?
Yeah.
Okay.
You got to get the blood. That's what you're going for, the oxygen. You just got to... Actually, if you just grab the nose, I think it's gone.
Just the trunk as it's lifting you in the air and throwing you from place to place.
Hold on. It'll pass out here in about 30 seconds.
Or you will. Pass away. Okay, so then you're going to have your revenues, so then you're going to start scoring based on where your pieces are, which is a unique thing. Yep. You've got your buzz with score points, and then you have additional tracks for your permanent markers. And then you're going to reset everything, and we start a whole new year, and we start the process over again.
So that's the core structure of the game. What you'll find when you're actually playing through it, there's going to be these big pockets of time where you're like sitting like a classic Euro game and analyzing, diagnosing, kind of placing out marks to figure out what you're trying to do. And then you look up around the table and you're like, hi, so this is what I'm moving forward with.
Yeah.
What are you thinking?
Here are the 9 things that I'm getting ready to do, and hopefully nobody screwed it up. Yeah. Because that is what it feels like. It feels awesome when you can go through and say, hey, all right, I've planned out this turn, and I think it's going to be beautiful, and then you can lay down a whole bunch of things, and in your entire turn, you're like, yep, okay, I got that. But there's a lot of thought that has to go into that, and if you're not as thinky, sometimes your turn takes a little while.
It's very cool. It's insanely satisfying. It is also way heavier than I expected a Zoo Tycoon game to be.
Me too.
And so that's the only big, strong caveat I will give. If you've made it to this part of the video and you're still thinking to yourself, like, hey, that sounds like my type of game, it probably is.
It probably is.
Like, genuinely, it probably is. Now, a few of the things that I would like to see as this Kickstarter happens and as they start, like, developing this, some storage options for, like, inside the game board, because we're working with a prototype here. I would love to see some storage options get mixed in, because all of those came in individual baggies, and West had to go through the process of resetting this up. And needless to say, we're a little scared to break it down.
Yeah, I don't ever want to break it down.
Because there's a lot of very nice animal meeples.
Beautiful. Like, incredibly well done.
That I don't want to resort.
Yeah, and to be fair, we started working with a prototype, so there are some that are maybe a little bit difficult to tell males and females, and they mentioned already that they are going to adjust that to make it very clear which are male and female. And I think it's super cool. I love being able to put meeples down in my space. I think that's really awesome, but that took like 25 minutes.
I'm also personally really hoping to see just a whole nother SKU of these like animal tiles that have this really beautiful artwork. Agreed. I'd love to see more buildings mixed into the game. I really like that part of the Zoo Tycoon experience. I like feeling like I'm building out this atmosphere. And because this board is static and the animals here are classic but pretty... they're always going to be here.
Yeah.
I like having and feeling like I can add a little bit more variance. Like a zoo with 12 skunks.
Yeah.
That'd be glorious. So I would like to see that developed a little bit more, just because selfishly, from my end of things, it's something that I look for and I find satisfying when it comes to the Zoo Tycoon genre. I want to feel like I've not only built and managed a zoo, but built a very unique park. I would also love for these player boards to have a bit more variance to them. Right now, the landscape really doesn't mean too much. And for me, I kind of want to, like you were like, oh, it's cold in Cleveland.
Right.
Yeah, I want some snow on the ground here.
Sure.
Even if it's just a thematic overview or just like an overlay of art, which I'm not sure they're going to do, but it's something that for me just helps me immerse myself in this game. Like I feel like I'm building a zoo in Sub-Sahara versus, Cleveland, Ohio versus Milwaukee, Tennessee.
I mean, they did change the different zoos. So, I mean, these player boards are specific for each one, but I agree with you. I think it would be cool to be slightly different, even more different.
It's the name of the zoo that's different. It's not It's not the actual landscape or artwork or buildings or structures or anything like that. And then beyond that, it's very good. It's very good.
If you like Euro games where you're planning things out and you're taking the opportunity to really, really get the most points per play, you're going to love this game.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of opportunity for that min-maxing to the extreme in this game. Yeah. I mean, we didn't even talk about these different conservation areas with level 3s and different things you can do with the children that you build and make. There's a whole pathway to do that as well. There's so many different things and so many different ways to score points. It's got a really unique edge, but it is very heavy. So you have to be ready and prepared for that. And if you're just a casual Zoo Tycoon fan, it might not be the right thing.
I think it's going to do well, though. Honestly, on my end, I think it's coming out at the right time period. I think with Ark Nova skyrocketing to where it is right now, I would expect Zoo Tycoon to not only do well when it comes to this pre-launch, but also have some good longevity behind it. I think going heavy is probably the right move for them if they can get setup time, if they can get like the accessibility of the game as clean as possible.
Storage trays, just like, hey, you pull it out of the box, boom, put it down.
If they can get the game so that it's as quick and easy to play as possible, like if that's the next stage of their design and development on this, I think it's gonna have a very good life and a very, very well and accepting audience.
Agreed.
And I would like to see it do that, because I would like to see expansions come out with a whole different like variants, or another board come out with just more of those tracking numbers and more of the stats and more of like the ways that you change up with the ways that you might be able to change up the game. So with that, that's a video. It's a preview. It's a first look. That's our thoughts on Zoo Tycoon, the board game. I'd also love a mechanic, just selfishly, to remove those fence posts. Come on, we all did it. We all did it. You need to give me that option. Just like a rage quit mechanic. It should be in there.
A rage quit mechanic.
Like if your money is too far from someone else's money or something like that, your gate breaks and the lions get out. Like,
so you want like unfair cards where something like that, and you say, hey, the person who's in the last place sabotages the first place.
I don't want to sabotage. I just want some system where I just want some system that implements that one thing that we all did as kids. Mm-hmm. Did you ever play Zoo Tycoon on the computer?
I did, but I wasn't a kid when I played it.
Okay, so like you can build this beautiful habitat. Mm-hmm. You can create all these fences and structures and posts.
Yep.
And then once you're kind of done with the zoo that you have, you can just delete the lion's fence. And then the lions get out.
Okay.
And then they start hunting the people.
I love it.
Yeah.
That could be fun.
It could be very fun.
It would give a lot of education points.
Maybe a different game. We'll see you next time. Thank you.